For me, the attention agency has been partly a vehicle for me to be able to do the type of work that I'm truly passionate about and pick and choose, which is a real luxury. We get to enjoy the people that we work with. It's not like we're forced to do work with clients that we don't love or on campaigns that doesn't really vibe with us. So that's part one, is about the enjoyment of the work and the team. And part two is that I would like to build some wealth for myself. So it's a profitable vehicle to do that. I don't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. In sort of 5 years' time, I am hoping that there is a succession plan. I'm not building the agency to scale for sale. For now, it is a vehicle for me to build a really great team, give them some buy-in as well, and work with people that we really enjoy working with on work that we like doing. That's what success looks like.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Ways to Wealth podcast. Today I am joined by Tina, the owner and operator of the Attention Agency. And why don't you give us the TLDR on who you are and what kind of led you to this moment?
Cool. Thank you for having me on the show. And the TLDR version is that Hawke's Bay born and bred girl, went to actually a variety of schools around the country. We moved a lot as kids. So between Hawke's Bay and Auckland, been through many homes, lived in a lot of different places. I've moved around an awful lot, but not in my career. I have been a stayer when it comes to jobs and even business. So it's been the interesting sticking, or the one thing that seemed to stick in my life, which is cool and probably opposite for a lot of people.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how many times did you move?
41 homes in my, I'm also 41 years old, about to turn 42. So on average, about one home a year.
Yeah, and there were obviously times then where there were multiple moves in a year.
Correct.
Apparently moving is like the third most stressful thing that you can do.
Yes, but I think I'm relatively practiced at it now. Although my husband and I just moved into our, what we're calling our forever home last year. And I am like, wheel me out of here in a box. I am done with the moves. I've had my entire lifetime worth of moves already. Yeah, looking for that stability. I think I found stability in the jobs or career, I guess, that I've had. Went to university at Auckland.
And then you did your career mainly in Auckland?
Correct. Mostly in Auckland. Have lived in a few other places, Sydney, Brisbane, did some stints in Japan as well.
Cool. But you now own the Attention Agency?
I do. Before that, yes, I finished university and did an accounting degree, and within about 5 minutes of graduating decided that why on earth was I ever going to be an accountant? I hated it. I had actually been through that internship program offer situation straight out of uni, and had been offered a role at one of the big four consulting firms. And I was all set to start, and I just had this pit of my gut feeling that I am not going to enjoy this. Not proud of it, but I did call them the morning of, and I said, I've changed my mind and I'm not coming. And this has actually subsequently happened to me as an employer now. And I think that is a terrible thing to do. But I'm actually so glad for me personally that I chose to do that, because it led me to my real first job, which was at Remix magazine. Yeah, and I worked there for almost 10 years. And I started on that first day as just the dog's body. I was reconciling like a shoebox worth of receipts from about 3 years. It was pretty rough. And I went from there and worked my way up to become the editor all that time. I actually have had a failed attempt at a first business, which I set up, and I had no advice. I didn't know what I was doing. I bumbled about. I didn't charge enough. I didn't know how to sell. I had no systems and processes. For all of those reasons, I ran a very rubbish business.
Was it the same type of business?
Same type of business. So doing social media consulting, but it was very early days. And I certainly learned a thing or two about timing your business idea and entering it into a market.
Timing does make a big role, doesn't it?
It makes a big difference. And at that time, it was so new that no one was really willing to pay for that kind of thing. Skip forward a few years. Yeah. So I did get sucked back into the corporate vacuum of media in New Zealand. I worked at NZME for a couple of years, and then I decided I'm over the corporate media machine and ready to set up my own thing again. So 5 years ago, started the Attention Agency.
So, you started on your own in the first attempt. Like, what were the motivating factors, or was there a catalyst that really...
I didn't really think that I had an entrepreneurial, leaning, but at the same time, what I'd learnt at Remix magazine was how to run a business. It wasn't mine, so I didn't have that there is an extra level of pressure, which I didn't appreciate at the time. But I definitely thought I knew enough to, do my own thing. And also my mum and my dad had run their own things. And I guess it had kind of grown up in a family where you work for yourself.
And you definitely dealt with a lot of change.
I dealt with a lot of change, yeah. So felt like I was strong enough and adaptable enough to do it, gave it a go. And I certainly, honestly, had a really good learning. The second time around, I was a lot more prepared to take advice, plan, listen to others, seek help when I need it, ask better questions, all of those things.
Went back into NZME. Did you use that as a recharging opportunity after that first go?
I definitely did. It did give me my confidence back. Going back into that environment, it was very clear to me that I definitely know what I'm doing. And it wasn't, I'm hopeless. I don't know what I'm doing. So the skills are all there. I just also learned a lot about how a corporate machine works and doesn't work. I can't do the things that I want to do in an environment like this because it's not agile enough. It's not fast enough. I want to be able to create value faster. In the world of social media and digital marketing, you need to be able to change and iterate really, really quickly. And you just can't do that really in a corporate environment.
Now you kind of control your own destiny as well.
Yeah, now we get to do it anytime we like. For clients that we want to work with, we get to pick and choose those clients. We get to give the direction of the projects and the campaigns that we create. Really, really, we're this close to where the value actually happens. So to know we're that close to the impact that we're actually able to have is really fulfilling.
Where do you feel like the big trends are right now? Where's the underappreciated opportunity in the space, and where do you find there's a lot of excitement for the work you can do and the extra value you can provide?
I think probably the big mega trend is one around trust, because so much trust has been eroded on virtually all of our social and digital channels. People are very wary. They're suspicious of AI generated content. They're suspicious of fakes, deep fakes, scams, hacks, everything. And so I think the big trend is, how do we demonstrate that we can be trusted and that we are real people and that we are offering something that's genuine and real value, absolute other rubbish that's out there. So that's certainly the direction that we're going in with all of our clients and me personally as well. But it is really, really hard to be consistent and build a really trustworthy reputation online.
I must have done over 100 episodes now. Well, I totally kind of agree with it. And I've been seeing it for a while. I think we definitely saw it more acutely during the US election. Trump obviously used long form content as his distribution strategy with independent content creators. And I think that there's also approach, I would say, happening with businesses as well. And people are basically, like you say, they're adopting things based on trust and alignment. And what that's creating is obviously this creator economy, or this gig economy / creator economy, where you're getting your sources and your kind of information and your services from maybe even a more personal relationship, rather than, I guess, if we think about the last 20 years, it's been big corporate thinking about those brands being the trusted brands. Now it's, like you say, there's a lot more connection to an individual. And I guess that definitely was a motivating factor for us just starting a podcast. Also because this room happens to be really great for conversations.
Yes, it is.
We should just record these. Hence, we started.
You're doing the thing that we recommend that people do, which is adding your knowledge, your insights, and people actually get to know who you are and also get to know the guests that you have. Just having a natural conversation with people proves that we're not robots.
Yes. And the other day I pitched the Creative HQ Accelerator for the business, and then I used Riverside, typed in what I said, and because that's content of me, it really was like me.
So absolutely, tools like Riverside and things like Descript and Opus Clip, you can make yourself say different words, which is also terrifying. So that's what I mean. It's really going to be even harder to actually understand when things are genuine and not. I feel really sorry for anyone who is even slightly out of touch with the technology and who doesn't have a really good eye for these things.
I was having a conversation with someone on Discord the other day, and very quickly I worked out that it was obviously an agent, but I was like, it was pretty good. That whole Turing test has obviously been ruined now. It's been done. GPT, it definitely passes that. But even, independent agents that can just masquerade as a person, whether it be on Twitter or, anything.
I've had phone calls. In fact, I'm getting multiple phone calls each week now, which are AI agents. And the first time it happened, I was genuinely interesting way to open a conversation. And then I was like, wait on a minute, this is not a real person.
Right. Startup called Vappy, which is basically a voice assistant or voice agents. Really good.
Are we going to get to the point where you won't actually answer phone calls from numbers you don't recognize? I'm already doing that. I'm filtering out already, and that's not a great situation to be in, because I also run a business. I want to call people and I want people to take my calls, but I also need to be able to take important incoming calls. Right now, I'm getting so many giveaways. Anything with a phone number starting in 884 or any of those kind of numbers are don't answer those. Yeah.
I get a lot of phone calls where they just hangs up straight away as well. It's super annoying.
Oh yeah. I'm like, are you just capturing my hello, Tina speaking? so that they can use my voice. I'm so suspicious, obviously.
Sales cycle for you. My wife's an artist, so she's in probably 6 or 7 galleries around the world, and she runs an artist, she's an artist, but she doesn't like the business of the business. And I think that's also the case with a lot of creators and a lot of people that run creative agencies. Is like, you've got the sales side, which is a big part of the business, and then you've got the work. Both are really important. How have you tackled it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was not set up with the skills. I didn't come into this business with business skills. I didn't come in with financial. Look, I know I had an accounting degree. Let's all agree that that is absolutely worthless. It's not worth the paper it's on until you actually practice as an accountant. But even accountants don't really know how to run a business either. No disrespect to the accountants I know, it's very, very different. So forecasting, modeling, scenario planning, just payroll, recruitment, handling conflicts, handling all of these other things, which are completely separate skills to the creative work, which is my sweet spot. So I was one of those people who started a business because I was very good at a specific thing. I'm an ideator. I have really great creative thinking, creative strategy, and I certainly learned the very, very hard way how to run a business.
Right.
Very, very lucky to have some very smart people in my corner, though. My husband, Josh, who you've talked to before and you know well.
Yes.
And as well as other advisors along the way. That's the learning I had after that first business was, I actually don't know what I'm doing here, so let me ask the questions. But this time around, I wasn't afraid to ask. I wasn't afraid to be like the dum-dum in the room who doesn't know. Okay to not know everything. And it's also very okay to outsource a lot of that stuff. Trusted partners.
I guess a lot of your work probably comes from referrals as well.
A lot of our work comes from referrals. And anytime we get a customer come via referral, it's immediately a very genuine, immediate trust built there because they've heard from someone else who's worked with us, who's been happy. And so usually those relationships are very easy to go to get off the ground straight away. We also get a lot of business these days. Now we're a little bit more mature and people have just generally heard of us or seen our work out in the market who just really love the work that we put out, which is cool. It takes a while for that.
Probably the best way to get a client is if they've seen a piece that you've done and you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always very proud when someone comes to us because they've seen the work and they don't necessarily know any of us, but they just want a part of that work.
Yeah, that's cool. I often find that especially like smaller entities are very nervous about using agencies because they just don't know enough. How do you recommend a company that's a little bit smaller or hasn't maybe used an agency before or maybe not and had success? I think there's a two-side thing, right? Like how do you as a business that wants to actually outsource something that maybe is not in the wheelhouse of your team and you want really good results, how do you prepare to actually be able to give the agency what they need in order to be successful so that you can be successful?
That is such an important question because we have worked with startups right through to very big corporates who have internal marketing teams as well. Yeah. And for us, there's a huge difference. Usually the smaller businesses, they don't typically have an in-house marketer. And so you're actually relying on the outsourced person like contractor or agency to actually do the heavy lifting of the thinking as well. So if you're in that smaller business situation, it's really helpful if you're engaging with a contractor or an agency to know what you want before you go out and reach out. You need to know what success would look like for you in that engagement. So let's say you are a SaaS business and you know that you want to build pipeline for your sales team to then close. You know that you want over the course of 6 months or a year that you know how many leads you need, what your close rate is, all of that stuff. It's really helpful for you to know all of that stuff before you engage with somebody else so that you can set them up with very clear metrics around what you're actually wanting them to achieve. Having no plan is very difficult. It's very difficult for an agency or a contractor to come in and be like, what do you want me to do? I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
The no brief.
We just brought someone on internally and we then have our editor person, but it's still low capacity because one of them's full-time sales and the other one's basically full-time editing and then testing product. He's chief of staff. So he's kind of just wearing as many hats as we can. But, we miss a lot of that. Well, there's only so far we can go. However, I thought it was important that we had someone that was more commercially minded and sales and marketing minded internally because we were missing that for such a long time in the business because we were so technical. Do you want to scale that team or actually maybe for us, it would be better to not scale internally, but scale out externally with a good strategy, especially if you've got someone that's going to guide it and own it. Because I think the worst thing that you probably go through is having a business owner that's a blocker, that isn't really owning it, but is owning it because they hold key information or whatever like that is. And then you struggle because I'm often the bottleneck.
No, you're totally right. And I've experienced good and bad engagements in that way as well. So you mentioned about whether or not you should in-house your capability and build and scale internally. It does depend on the nature of the business that you're in and whether having somebody who has really strong marketing chops it's very expensive and hard to hire someone who is an exceptionally good generalist in a small business. You might get someone who is really good at the creative, do all of your creative design, copywriting, all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to get that person probably not that good at analytics and the kind of data and the insights and that sort of thing. So getting a really strong generalist in a small business is really hard. So you need to decide whether you want to invest in building that capability in-house, or if you don't have the budget for it, a group of people, which is why an agency exists, because for the price of someone in-house, you get access to a team of specialists. But yes, you do need to have somebody who owns it, whether it's the business owner, in a small business it probably is, and also trust the people that you've hired as experts and do what they say. I've had several situations where, we've made recommendations based on our very deep experience that have then been like, oh no, actually I don't like it, or I don't feel like that's going to work.
Is it an aversion to putting yourself out there?
There's a lot of that for sure, especially nowadays when we're often asking the key executives or leaders in a business to actually front content and be in it because of the trust, circling back to that. So there's an aversion to that. And then of course we're relying on, if you won't front this content, who will? And if we don't have a person attached to it, then we're just relying on a really strong brand. If you're a small business, you don't have a strong brand yet. Yeah, having someone being able to front the content immediately helps build that trust.
Right.
But if you're going to not do that, then you need to rely on either a lot of budget, getting your brand out there so you can be good brand awareness, and really great other creators like influencers and things like that.
Yeah, with my first startup, we hit a really good timing for influencers because it was new. And in gaming, it was very niche and it was very cost effective. Like I would spend $40 US on a video and I'd wake up with like 6,000 new users.
Amazing.
Now, obviously, working with influencers is super expensive, and hard to manage as well. Because if you're dealing with a larger influencer, okay, it's going to be a lot of money, but at least you're only going to deal with one person. The alternative strategy to that is probably what I was doing in 2017, which was more micro influencers. But then you're dealing as an individual company, you don't really want to be dealing with 10 micro influencers. That's when you'd rather delegate off, because you don't have the budget for that one influencer, but that means you need to speak to 20.
And there are whole businesses that have been spun up around that, around managing that process, and there are platforms for it, and experimented with some of those as well. There's a couple of good businesses out of New Zealand that do that too, because it is a massive pain in the ass having to deal with many different people who all work in different ways, who respond to the brief in a different way, good or not good at getting back to you on time, meeting deadlines, making sure that your key messaging is all on point, all that stuff.
That's hard as well, isn't it? Like when you're dealing with influencers and even staff, if the staff want to be in content, like letting go and making sure that the message is like really on brand, and sales actually, because I just mentioned we just hired a salesperson, and going through that process of letting go a little bit, but also steering and being like, no, this is the real message that we need to get across in this way, but it's quite hard.
Well, all that comes back to having a really strong marketing strategy and key messaging framework to begin with. And if you don't have that in place, then how are your staff supposed to know we call it being barbecue chat ready. So for our own team, making sure that they know if someone at a barbecue says, hey, what do you do? They're able to say, we're a retention agency. We do B2B marketing for Kiwi businesses. That involves content creation, lead generation, advertising, all that kind of stuff. Something as simple as that. But they should be able to explain what it is that you do.
Totally.
Simply. It's remarkable how many businesses have not actually nailed down what their elevator pitch is or what their barbecue pitch is.
Most undervalued platform right now for content. I mean, you're going to say LinkedIn if it's B2B.
Say LinkedIn.
Goldmine.
It's a goldmine. If you'd asked me 18 months ago, I would have still said LinkedIn sucked at that time, but it is really, really good. So really good. We're primarily B2B, right? So all of our action happens on LinkedIn. That's not to say that some of our clients don't also get some really good engagement on other channels, like particularly short form video. Some of them are having a good time on TikTok.
We do well on TikTok for the short form stuff, and Instagram too, but I just find that the algorithm on TikTok's just better for getting content across. X is terrible, really bad, but TikTok's been okay.
And the other one, of course, is podcasting as a whole format. You have obviously fully bought into this for all the reasons that we say. You can have the long form conversation, which goes on YouTube, which is great for your SEO. You can then cut it up, place that onto your alternative channels. YouTube Shorts.
YouTube Shorts are good too, actually. Yeah, they are really good engagement from those. And then we're doing kind of, I guess, a little bit like the style as well for ads we're about to run. So we have been like going in different places around the office and kind of vertical video.
Well, we're basically only producing content now in 4x5. Suits, portrait, everyone going portrait first.
Yeah, for sure. So that was interesting. We spent 2 hours doing it yesterday. Repeating the same thing over and over again, but slightly different. Interesting. I do prefer the podcasts, just because then it just doesn't feel like a thing.
It's natural.
Yeah, but it is important to test the boundaries of what you're doing, especially when it comes to growth and marketing, because that's everything about your business.
Absolutely. And what works now, what we're talking about now, probably won't work in a year's time. So it is always about dipping your toe in and trying out other new platforms and new tactics and things like that as well. I'm also seeing a return to more traditional forms of marketing because of circling back around to trust. So specific like native advertising on trusted platforms like New Zealand, doing content alignment with the likes of an NZ Business or a New Zealand Herald, or aligning with specific podcasts, like choosing a very niche specific audience that doesn't necessarily rely on social channels.
That makes a lot of sense. I think around the kind of getting the right like brands and logos behind what you do and telling your story is really important.
Those mastheads can add a lot of authority as well.
I wonder the next platform is, because there's been a few that have tried that are going to be like fully voice. I saw there's one called Air Chat, which was doing full like Twitter, but voice threads. And it was all transcribed as well because of AI. They were using LLMs to then transcribe it. It didn't quite take off like the other one is Clubhouse. Yeah, Clubhouse was really good for a time and then it got really bad. It wasn't able to stick the test of time. And I think they got offered like $4 billion or something from Facebook and they turned it down.
Should have taken it.
They should have definitely taken that. That was nuts. The problem is they raised too much money at a high. Basically, it made their money from the investors. It was like, for some reason, it's quite a high valuation and they were able to take secondaries. So they kind of made their money. Then they wanted to go the whole way and unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. I mean, it's still going, but they actually changed. They obviously tried to pivot the idea and they actually just completely ruined it.
Amazing, when a product takes a direction that is just not what people have signed up for to start with.
They got majorly disrupted, I think, by Twitter Spaces or X Spaces.
We're still calling it Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who calls it X.
He's doubled down on X. I know they wanted PayPal to be X and then it never happened.
Back in my early media days, Twitter was the place where you could get stream of consciousness from people that have interesting ideas. It was a great way to connect with people, especially around events or politics or journalists. It was easy to get easy direct access to like people that you couldn't otherwise access.
And now that's LinkedIn. Podcast for broader independent distribution. And then, you got your kind of classics that are more brand recognition.
Exactly. I mean, there's still a very, very standard digital marketing 101 stuff, which is obviously Instagram, Meta, if you have that kind of audience, Google search, Google display, good content production that's on your website that is SEO optimized. The world of SEO is obviously changing. We're not an SEO specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but the way people search is changing. Are you set up for search by voice? Are you set up to be when people search or ask via ChatGPT or other AI-based chats?
Yeah, and how can you like read? Because I think a big thing like for a business, especially if you're smaller and you need like punch above your weight, you need to work out how you can recycle one piece of content into many things, right? It's making the most of it.
Exactly. Well, this is a format that I think works really well for that. So a long form podcast, you can then transcribe, put that as a blog onto your website. You can then chop it down into 10 or 12 or more short form pieces of content, little snippets, which can then be turned into graphics, which can then go on your Instagram. There's many ways that you can repurpose a long form piece of content like this. Then, of course, you can promote the very best of it as part of your paid campaign activity.
So do you often do that internally where you're doing like organic stuff and then if it works, and when do you know it works to then basically put money behind it?
We do promote some organic content just to make sure that more people see the very best of our content. If it's in our top 2 or 3 posts for the month, we will. And if it's evergreen.
So not the trend surfing stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only stuff that's going to be relevant, in a couple of weeks from now as well, if not months, then we'll put some budget behind it.
Yeah, that was actually really intentional about these conversations in this podcast, was to not have it be time sensitive.
Well, it takes a lot of time to edit these things, and if you're talking about something that's happening today, it's not relevant in a couple of weeks. What's the point of it?
Yeah, you're never going to be able to ride the algorithms when they're hot. With our other podcast segment, we've gone to streaming it live, which is interesting with the intention, but still, when we want to get the shorts out there, like I've noted, it's a macro piece. So it's on Mondays, you get the last week's information. Most of it's captured over the weekend, and then you disperse it. And we were still getting out the day that we were recording it, but then the shorts weren't going out fast enough. And then by the time like some of the shorts were coming out, it's like, I know that trend's already gone.
It's like, as an example that almost everybody can relate to, we've obviously just seen the tail end of it. People who manage to get content out on the day of a big thing like Super Bowl, for instance, which was just like 2 weeks ago. And then these creators are turning hilarious, amazing stuff around on the day, or if not the day after. They can capitalize on that massive number of eyeballs on that trending event or conversation. But do it 2 weeks later and you're like, that's actually like it's a massive distraction, and you go straight to loser town. Don't be late to the party.
Yeah, I mean, Super Bowl ads always work.
They do if you've got like $50 million.
It's a whole thing. Like, people want the ads.
They do. There's more anticipation. Well, for me personally, because I don't really care about the actual sport. I care about the halftime show as well. But the ads, for me, are the most important thing about Super Bowl and our industry. People really get quite excited. We want to know who's booked.
Because it's like art, really, at that point, right? Because they're all really kind of trying to do something special because of the nature of it and the money. Like, you may as well do something really amazing.
Exactly. It is totally the craft. This is peak advertising in some ways.
It's like the Super Bowl of advertising. Super Bowl.
That's so meta.
Yeah. So what does success look like in 5 years? Like, is there a game plan? Is there like what's the thought process? Is it just the passion of doing the work? Or is it also like, is there a success state that you're thinking about like in 5 years?
That's a good question, and one I've had in mind since we started the business.
Okay.
For me, the Attention Agency has been partly a vehicle for me to be able to do the type of work that I'm truly passionate about and pick and choose, which is a real luxury. We get to enjoy the people that we work with. It's not like we're forced to do work with clients that we don't love or on campaigns that doesn't really vibe with us. So that's part one, is about the enjoyment of the work and the team. And part two is that, speaking frankly, I would like to build some wealth for myself. So it's a profitable vehicle to do that. I don't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. In sort of 5 years' time, I am hoping that there is a succession plan. I'm not building the agency to scale for sale.
Like a management buyout type thing, and then perhaps just stay involved, but less at operations over time.
Yeah, I think so. I've seen that work really well in other businesses like ours. I'm not also putting off the table an acquisition as well. If the right acquire and or fit or offer came around at the right time, for sure, you'd be crazy not to entertain those kind of things. But for now, it is a vehicle for me to build a really great team, give them some buy-in as well, and work with people that we really enjoy working with on work that we like doing. So I feel like that ticks. That's what success looks like.
Yeah. What is your favorite type of client to work with then?
Everyone that we work with ticks a box in that way. They know what they want. I love a client who knows what they want or don't want. So a client that's
opinionated.
Speak the truth, that can just genuinely give and receive really good feedback, be open, an open book, both of those ways. There's no point pussyfooting around if you are engaging with someone. To avoid telling them what you don't like. So really open, really respects the craft and what we do, believes in marketing, because believe it or not, there are people out there who engage agencies who also set them up to fail because they don't actually believe in marketing. They're just doing it because they feel like they have to.
When I was thinking about that preparation question, because I do think sometimes you use services with that negative bias already in mind, and then it's almost self-fulfilling.
You also mentioned at that time that there are people out there who've been burned by poor engagements with other agencies. And I feel like that's always a red flag if the first thing that someone says to me in a discovery call is, oh, we've worked with these guys and they've been terrible. Those agencies I know have good reputations, and I know that they're not doing bad work. So what was it about the engagement that didn't work for you? That's typically kind of how I get to the bottom of that question. So yeah, people who they believe in the power of long-term marketing as well as short-term marketing. So you can't just come to us and say, we want 100 leads. We don't want to do any of the other brand building stuff. That is not going to work long-term. You will rinse the tiny fraction of people who might be ready to buy right now, with completely ignoring all the others who are not in market right now. You need to be doing both the long-term nurturing, awareness, brand building stuff, as well as mining the people who are ready to buy and considering things right now. So if you don't believe in both parts of that, you're really setting yourself up to fail as well.
Well, outside of equity, I think equity for team members is a really great thing if you can make it happen. Easier in startups, and it's because it's a natural thing. But how do you, in this changing world, like you say, what's working today on LinkedIn feels right now that it's in a sweet spot. Yeah, next year it probably might not be. We don't know what will be there then, but like these things don't last forever. Same with technology, same with the ways of work. How do you make your team feel comfortable in this kind of world where things are changing quite dramatically and you want to adopt things to try and improve your business? Maybe the incentive, or there's a fear around picking up and adopting new technology, perhaps. And we know that things are moving very quickly right now. It feels like, 2019 was a different world. And today it also feels like I've never seen technology move so quickly, or things being built and deployed so quickly ever before in my existence.
Crazy that the speed at which we all have to adapt and operate these days, it's dizzying. Someone at my age and stage and level of my career has experienced a lot of change. But for those who are younger, coming straight into a world that is this crazy must feel so disorienting and probably a little upsetting at times. I'm certainly seeing that people in no matter what sector are worried about how their jobs or security in their careers might be affected by the use of AI. We went through this with outsourcing as well. So there is constant worry about whether what we do and what we do for a job and where we are will even exist as a job or a career in a year's time. Isn't it crazy to think that? There's definitely less security now than I feel there ever has been.
Definitely less certainty. I would say that it's also interesting to see the adaptability of the workforce actually over the last 5 years. Like, I kind of feel like the gig economy and the contractor economy has probably distorted the pain in many ways, because I think that more and more people do have a few streams of revenue. When you're not relying on one income or one career, you know, you can survive a little bit longer, or you're a little bit less fragile. And I have kind of all the different contracting sites and the way people hire now, that has probably dampened the statistics, but maybe the pain that's been felt is probably as bad as it's been prior kind of economic downturns.
So I think there's a little bit of resilience factor, like personal resilience, as well as building in resilience into your life, so that if things do change and we're living on really shifting weird times, that you do have maybe a backup plan and that you do have some savings in the bank and, you know, a bit of a plan around what might happen, a couple of other gigs or sort of fingers and pies. So it's building some resilience into your life with investments, right? You want to hedge your bets with where your money goes. Perhaps we might start thinking about that in careers as well.
I've seen more people that are working full-time also do side projects, and more people are kind of open to doing something on the side that's bringing in revenue.
Is it actually with the cost of living crisis, it might be something to do with that?
Well, I think it's a necessity, isn't it? I mean, I definitely, we run these financial wellbeing programs with employers, which has been really cool. But I definitely think that I've never seen so many people that earn great wages to not have enough. It was quite eye-opening.
I've been one of those people who was on a 1% salary, who then also couldn't barely making mortgage payments at times. I was like, this is crazy. How do people, is it meant to be this hard?
I definitely found that quite interesting. I think, perhaps the cost of living situation, the dynamics around it, and the dynamics specifically for New Zealand in that regard, like the currency has been so weak that actually does affect, as a business that probably also buys a lot of subscriptions for international products. You would have noticed that your costs are going up like monthly as the dollar gets weaker.
It's incredibly noticeable. I just looked into it. I have, in fact, on my list today is look at our subscriptions, because with the dollar and everything else, our monthly subscription bill has gone from around about, let's say, $3,500 a month to about $5,500 a month. And that's a sizable difference. I'm like, do we need everything that we're subscribed to here? And I'm certain that there's some fat in there that we don't use. And there's tools that, you know, and as a Venn diagram, they might do, you know, if there's something that's going to be good enough to replace another. So the subscriptions are about to get the shot today.
It's good as well if you can find products that have, if you can I can take this product on and I get to lose these other 2 subscriptions. That's always nice when you get a win like that.
Yes, well, I mean, there are some out there that are just straight up about to be replaced by Google and or Microsoft's AI. So one of our tools that we had been using, which has been absolutely amazing over the last few years, was doing all of our transcriptions and captions and all that stuff for the likes of our podcast and video stuff. You know, you can literally turn on Gemini in the middle of a meeting and it's doing that for you. So I don't need to be paying for a separate service to do that. But so if there's a business that's being built around services that find an acquisition ASAP,
Gemini's cool. We're using that as well. We're doing some empathy interviews at the moment. Even though we know our customer and we're doing marketing, we never did it for this persona. So we don't know how much of we're actually covering and if we're actually fully on where we want to be. We know that we've now got adoption from these 2 niches, but we didn't do the work to kind of really kind of ask the questions without it being a sales pitch. And we're using Google Meet and Gemini to do all the recording and transcriptions and the summaries, and that's pretty cool. That's nice. I think, yeah, Google, like we live on Google in our business. We use all of the services. They're probably one of my favorite businesses in the world. Like, they must be one of the best businesses in the world.
We are all Google Suite and we make use of everything. Yeah. And as an agency, we also have to collaborate with clients who are using other things. So we have exposure to all of the wonderful world of the likes of Teams, which...
Yeah, Teams is the worst.
Oh, it's so bad.
And so is Zoom. Surely you use Google. I don't know how anyone could actually make the decision to go with like Microsoft over Google. Like,
I do understand, because a lot of our customers are in technology. And so a lot of technologists very hot on Microsoft's world of security. It's known to be or billed as more secure.
Right.
And anyway, that is why you often find enterprise customers using Teams. But oh my gosh, as a collaboration tool, it is literally a -1 out of 10. It's terrible. Yeah. So we often have customers actually like create or use their personal Google accounts to then collaborate with us, which is probably outside of the enterprise security policies
of working. Yeah,
exactly.
What else you do like outside of work to kind of like, I don't know, I do jiu-jitsu, and it's really nice to be out of the head, because it's hard to like stop thinking about the business. So do you do anything that actually helps solve that?
I love to go hiking. So I love nature. I love getting out and not having a device and going for like multi-day hike. That's a place where I feel like it's like a bath for the mind. And that's not to say I'm not thinking about things while I'm walking, but it's actually giving me very clear thinking time. I've come away from some of those multiple day adventures with really clear ideas, really cool creative concepts. But it's because I've given myself the time and freedom to think about it properly. Aside from that, I just love being active, love being sociable, love my garden. I'm such a gardener. Love my tomatoes.
Also something to be said about a change of physical location, quite helpful for the mind.
Yeah, I mean, nature, there is something about being in the bush or just away in snow. I love skiing, snowboarding.
Yeah.
Really love being in the mountains. There is something very refreshing. There is studies up, so much research that supports being in nature does have positive outcomes for your health and wellness as well.
Let's say there's a business owner or a startup founder or someone that wants to use an agency for the first time. 3 bullet points on how to prepare and make the most of the experience.
Ask yourself, what in-house capability or capacity do you have that you can use first? Do you have someone who is going to be able to lead the discussions and be the point person for your agency? Because the agency is going to ask you a lot of things like, we're going to need input, feedback, approvals. So there's a lot of time involved. There is still time involved. You can't just outsource the whole problem and set and forget. So who's going to be the person who's running point?
Yeah.
And do you have enough time set aside to be able to actively manage that relationship to get the best out of it? Secondly, know what you want. What is it that you're wanting to achieve? And be very, very open and sharing with your business intel, all of your business plans. Be open about your financials. Be open about your sources of funding. Your agency will be more of a partner with you if you treat them like a member of your executive team, if you give them the full picture. If you obfuscate anything, you're not going to have a good time. Third, be respectful and trusting that you engaged experts. Oh, actually, before you do that, do your research. Go and call people who might have worked with that agency. Find out. Go and do some LinkedIn. It's a Riverside thing. A really, really important point if you're going to engage an agency or a contractor, just like if you're going to recruit someone into your business, is do your due diligence. Find out who's going to be working on your account. It's not just a slick salesperson. You will get handed off to someone who's actually going to be your day-to-day point person. Who's that person? What's their skills? And make sure you meet that person and all the people on the team. Find out what work they've done in the past. If you can talk to someone who's worked with these people before, have a phone call and find out what they're like to work with.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to end. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.